Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Movie Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing
Happyend, written and directed by Neo Sora.
のやつが緊急事態でっち上げて独裁者になりかけてんだよ。なんで誰も危機感感じてないの？
どうせ死ぬなら楽しく死のうぜ。デモって本当に社会変えれるんですか？その後はこうはどう？
So this film is slightly old. Not slightly old. By slightly old, I mean it released last year. But it's only in British cinemas for like consistent viewing now. It is a Japanese kind of dystopic, futuristic, but not really film. And
okay.
it's fantastic. I think it's really, really, really good and like very well written. It was at the BFI London Film Festival last year, and it had its world premiere at the Venice International Film Festival last year.
Okay.
So it's like critically acclaimed. It has made its rounds on like the film festival circuits internationally, as well as like specific to Asian cinema, East Asian cinema, and Japanese cinema. So it's quite like
Buzzy.
well renowned and fairly so. So like to get straight into it, its basic premise is that it's set in the near future Tokyo. And from what like the film never really states what year it's in, but like from looking at posters like in the kind of set of the kind of film, you can kind of make out that it's 2039, just before 2039 or just after 2039.
How so? That feels very specific.
Yeah, it's just on a poster, like in the kind of set. It's just on a poster in the set.
You just spotted one poster and you're like clocked it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I'm saying like I'm not saying it's 2039. I'm like it's a little bit before or a little bit after that. Which is like not
sense.
so far away. It's like 14 years away. And it's about this group of school-going kids who are stuck in a system that constantly perpetuates surveillance, xenophobia, and just general amounts of authoritarianism. It's specifically about these two best friends. Their names are Yuta, played by Hayato Kurihara, and Ko, played by Yukito Hidaka. And the film kind of it's centered around their friendship specifically and how it kind of fluctuates as they kind of progress through this system that I said is like authoritarianism. And basically we're in a Japan right now where the threat of like a life-ending, world-ending earthquake is ever looming. And as like a reaction to that, their school that they're in is kind of undergoing some changes. So their school, I read it as kind of like a microcosm to what Japan is meant to be in this kind of futuristic land. But also it's very much reactionary to the Japan that it is microcosming, I guess.
Okay, so from what I understand so far, you're basically saying that it's about these two boys and their friendship, but as a backdrop, it's set in the near future, kind of dystopian, where there's an earthquake threat kind of looming, and that acts as like the set dressing and like the narrative sub through, basically the thing that drives the narrative forward in the background while the focus is on these main two characters.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And basically the film really kicks off when these two friends, Yuta and Ko, pull a prank by turning their principal's really fancy, expensive car vertical, which the principal then calls a terrorist attack and then proceeds to implement extreme surveillance measures throughout the school, which then the students or certain students, and this is important, have to fight back. And then this is where we kind of get to the whole xenophobia and surveillance and like the usage of these quote unquote terrorist attacks or like kind of these natural disasters, etc., etc. And it pokes fun at so many things. And I'm going to start with the quote unquote terrorist attack because it's literally a car that's been turned vertical. And the principal kind of goes full
As in
on.
vertical, you mean like on its headlights, right? Like 90 degrees in the air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just,
And
it's also really funny that someone managed to do that.
right, the whole time, like we were watching the season, I was like, how did they do that? But anyway,
Yeah, you would kind of low-key be impressed. Even if it was my car, I would still be a bit impressed that someone did it.
right? But yeah, so basically, the principal causes a terror attack, and it's kind of like you're meant to like laugh at the absurdity of it, because it's like your car is just vertical, just unvertical it. Like, what the fuck? And
Mhm.
I think in that particular bit, like the catalyst for the entire film really pokes a lot of fun at the tendency of authoritarian kind of leaders to
Yeah.
over dramatize things, and not just over dramatize, but like full out claim things are worse than they are, specifically like a terror attack.
Specifically to validate their own abuse of power.
Exactly. Cuff, cuff. I'm definitely not talking about Israel right now. But yeah, I mean, you can clearly see the parallels. And Sora is talking specifically about Japan and Japanese society. But like through the film, you can tell it's like influences on, you can tell like the same thing happening so many other places in the world right now, not even near future.
Yeah.
But
100%.
yeah, what I think this film does really well is balance these like really heavy themes and topics, like the one I just said, with the lightness of kind of being 17 and 18, and the kind of joy you're meant to be experiencing when you're that age, and how it's like so deeply influenced by the things around you, but how sometimes you've also got to just ignore the noise. And it ignores, this film kind of shows the ignoring the noise through music. The music in this film is composed by Lia Ouyang Rusli, and it is fabulous. It is so good, and it's just right at the correct moments. It really like enchants. A lot of it is techno music. Most of it is techno music. And I never thought I'd say this, but I actually like this kind of techno, which is like insane. But yeah, I think the music plays a really big role in this as well. And like going off of the kind of balancing the heaviness and the lightheartedness, I feel like it does a really good job of going back and forth between the two, instead of just going from like heaviness to lightness or lightness to heaviness in one direction throughout the film.
The tone is balanced in that really well maintained way. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like a perfect seesaw that's in constant motion, which I really, really appreciate, because then when you're like, you've gone from like a dark moment such as really bad earthquake to like a light moment of like students stealing music equipment and like having the time of their life, to then the racial dynamics of this friendship group being explored. Specifically, the fact that Yuta is one of the kind of main characters, is meant to be like upper middle classish, richish, like Japanese naturalized citizen who has a lot of rights, whereas Ko is a Zainichi citizen of Japan, which basically means that he has Korean heritage and they were brought over during Japan's colonization of Korea, and then kind of through generations have lived there. And then there's also kind of Tomu, this other friend, who's played by Arazi, who is meant to be a South Asian character.
Okay.
Right? And Ming, who is played by Sheena Peng, who is supposed to be part Taiwanese. And has like a lot of dialogue and a lot of conflict about not being able to speak Taiwanese or Chinese well enough to talk to her own father, which is also interesting because Taiwan also at some point used to be colonized by Japan. It like kind of really does a good job of doing this back and forth through the kind of lives and inner lives of these kids, and through kind of their interactions when they're just having fun or listening to music, manages to touch on such like intense issues like Japan's colonial history, the racism that is prevalent there, among other things. So yeah, I just feel like it does a really, really good job. And I think Neo Sora, one of my friends mentioned this, that Neo Sora has said that his decision to choose earthquakes, for example, is like this major thing that's always looming. is because when authoritarian leaders tend to use disasters as a way to push basically their authoritarianism.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so intelligent. Like, now that you mention it, I can clearly think of instances.
Think of just the pandemic very much so as well, when you think about that and how much that was taken kind of advantage of in certain circumstances. And then you have, again, I was thinking, hurricanes in the US has happened. And yeah, 100%. It's also coming back to how we've talked about, when we talked about element of how slum infrastructure and a lot of infrastructure of people who have kind of been not given proper housing, who or who've immigrated and have to kind of settle into less well built areas. They're more susceptible to natural disasters and natural occurring issues because the city was not built for them in some ways. So I am very surprised because you've mentioned how many things it's doing, right? With using
Yeah.
music to do this, having these two main front characters, exploring the racial dynamics within the group, having this backdrop of authoritarianism and earthquakes, and just able to all tie into one cohesive theme. That's really challenging to do sometimes.
No, for sure. And if it had been paced even slightly differently, I would have said that I am critical of the fact that it's trying to stuff too many things into one. But it's paced perfectly. It's 113 minutes. And, it slowly kind of brings you into all of these. And yeah, I think that's one of its advantages, that it's written quite well. Written also by Neo Sora, which I think is to its advantage. But yeah, I would recommend watching this film to everyone. It is like an Orwellian nightmare brought to screen in a very specific and rightly so and really well done Japanese context, which is also universal as 1984 kind of proved out to be. 1984, I mean the novel, turned out to be.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely think people should be watching this film. And at the very least, you'll come out with an appreciation of techno, I guess.
Fair enough. A perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is produced solely by us with musical assets from Pixabay. If you enjoy this, please do share it. See you again next time.